A 16-team college football playoffs is coming, and it won't be fair. Quite honestly, it'll probably be rigged. But automatic bids could save Kansas State, while Nick Saban is working behind the scenes to keep the Big 12 in check. Let's talk about this right here, because this is the Locked On Kansas State.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rauh, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen every single day. Welcome back to my everydayers. Let's dive right in. 16-team college football playoff is coming. There's going to be a new expansion eventually. It's probably going to happen in 2026 and beyond. Probably won't happen anytime sooner, but it's coming. And with that, there's going to be some unfair advantages to some conferences, mainly the SEC and the Big Ten. What does that mean for the Big 12, ACC, and other schools? It's going to be an interesting ride, but it could be an adventure and a good one for Kansas State in the future. Could help. I'll talk about that in this one. And then Nick Saban. What's going on with him? There's some conversations about the former LSU and Alabama head coaching college football legend, if you will, being a part of a college football commission, maybe leading the charge, but maybe he's saying not so fast. And is that because of the Big 12 possibly getting their foot in the race? We'll talk about that one here on Locked On Kansas State. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. We are getting very close to 900 subscribers, and we are going to continue to go every single day of the week here on Locked On Kansas State. This is an evening episode. As a plane flies over my head, I apologize about that. This is an evening episode of Locked On Kansas State. We will be back to normally regular scheduled episodes starting tomorrow and for the foreseeable future. Apologize about that. Had some equipment issues and just getting back on travel. You don't need an excuse, but just know that we are back here and ready to roll. So let's dive in to this episode. And Ross Dellinger reports just the other day, and he's the best person to follow for this kind of news, for the record. When it comes to college football expansion, when it comes to the NCAA settlements, when it comes to the playoff potentials, anything like that, Ross Dellinger, the senior college football reporter for Yahoo Sports, is my first read. So his last article, Fight Over College Football Playoff Future, Getting Messy Amid SEC Big Ten Power Play, quote, no one likes it. Loved seeing that one. And what he really dives into is just talking about the fact that it's inevitable. The 16-team expansion playoffs is going to happen. But here's a couple of things that caught my eye and I wanted to discuss with you on this episode. First of all, he talks about how there are multiple people reaching out and talking how this is going to be an unfair advantage to both the SEC and ACC. And some of those are political people, political figures that might have some pull on some of this legislation. Representative Brendan Boyle, I believe he's the representative from Pennsylvania, came out, made a tweet saying, quote, the next time the Big Ten or SEC wants to meet with me about NIL, they need to be prepared to first explain to me how to justify trying to rig the college football playoffs. So it sounds like we are going to get, it's going to get messy before it gets clean for sure. But what does that mean down the line? And why is people starting to step up now and saying, hey, I think this is rigged for other conferences? Well, there's a report that's came out that says that if it does get expanded up to a 16-team playoff proposal, the SEC and the Big Ten would be awarded 4 automatic qualifiers in that college football playoffs. Now, that means half the field would be guaranteed to be SEC and Big Ten. This also comes into play with the Big 12 and the ACC getting 2. It would be a 4-4, 2-2 type of automatic qualifiers. And then those final 4 teams would be pushed across with either a group of 5 conference champion winner and then 3 at-large bids, or then I've also just seen 4 at-large bids. So that is what we are seeing right now as a potential and most likely outcome as of right now, this moment in the middle of May, for a potential 16-team playoff proposal that will most likely take place in 2026 and beyond. Now, I don't like it. I think it's rigged. And say what you want with media deals and say what you want about how the Big Ten and the SEC is becoming this mecca because ESPN is helping them out. I don't think that's the right way you should follow this for college athletics. There's a reason that there are a Power 4 conference. We were a Power 5 conference there was, let me take this back. There was five power conferences until the Pac-12 went away a few years ago, just this past year, if you will. The reason behind that is because of the greed of the SEC and the Big Ten poaching those schools and left the Pac-12 with nothing, with other than Washington State and Oregon State, right? Now, I know there's other things that come in it, and the Pac-12 missed out on opportunities. Believe me, I get that. We don't need to go down that route. What I'm getting at here is that greed is eventually going to find its end course. And if they continue to do this with the Big Ten and the SEC, trying to get more qualifiers than other conferences like the Big 12 and the ACC, then you're going to run into this situation where no one's going to want to play ball. And I think that's where we're at right now. Now, a lot of these quotes for Ross Dellinger came from ACC commissioners or from athletic directors. And this one's just from an anonymous athletic director, but it said, quote, "No one likes it." They said that we're fighting. And North Carolina's head coach said that we're fighting for our spots. I saw Miami's head coach saying that he doesn't like the fact of that you're getting these automatic qualifiers because it's considered as granting spots. And it kind of takes away the entire feel of college football. It makes zero sense, says Mario Cristobal, the head coach of Miami. Football has never been about gifting. It's about earning. This goes back to my process that I like to talk about with the three pillars of college football, with fans, tradition, and rivalry. Competition is instilled in all of that. You're just going to gift or grant the SEC 4 teams because ESPN has a media deal with them. I don't think that's the right way to go. If there is a better team out there, let's go back to last season with Alabama sitting on the bench. And this is where this all stems from, for the record. They hate the fact that Alabama didn't make the college football playoffs last year. And we're going to talk more Alabama in this conversation because Nick Saban is once again trying to sabotage some of these smaller power conferences, if you will. That doesn't include the SEC or the Big Ten. But I'm all about them earning their spots. I mean, if you want to go to the point to where you want to move to a 16-team playoff, great, let's do it. But I think you have to win your conference and you have to maybe be ranked, and then you can take the bias out of rankings. Should you go back to the BCS? Should you let the computer decide? Should you go back to that? We're in this weird moment right now where there are too many people that have a decision-making process in college football that also have their hands tied with the heavy media market of ESPN or Fox or something like that. And there needs to be a divide. And right now that's not there. And I don't know if it ever will be there because money talks. I'm not dumbfounded by that notion. I mean, what has money done to this sport that we love, that we're talking about right now, this very second, with the NIL and transfer portal? It has completely shifted the game on how we are even having this discussion. This would never have been a discussion if it wasn't for these type of things. Money is going to talk, but this 4-4-2-2-1 model, if you will, although some people like the idea behind it, I think is going to be a bad deal overall. For college football as a whole, I think it's not a good idea. Now, if they added straight seedings, and whether you won your conference championship or not, if you're the number one team in the country, and say you lose the Big 12 championship, but you're still considered one of the top teams in the country, top 4, then you should still receive a bye. I think there is an importance in one portion, in one side, in winning your conference. But I think on the other side, if you are a good football team, you need to be considered for this college football playoffs. Now this, and I can already hear it now, these Alabama folks that are going to hear that conversation right there say, that's exactly why Alabama deserved to be in the college football playoffs. No. There's a reason you were 9-3. If you're ever going to make the argument, it should have been BYU over SMU. And that should be where the conversation ends from last year's college football playoffs. The fact that BYU didn't make it over SMU was absolutely egregious. I'm not even fighting for Kansas State to be there. We didn't deserve to be there. But they're going to make it this year. And with this new auto bid that's not happening this year, but with the fact of it moving in the future, that could be a really big thing, a really nice thing for Kansas State down the line. Let's talk about that next, right here on Locked On Kansas State. This episode of Locked On Kansas State is brought to you by Wayfair. The days are getting longer, the weather's warming up, and people are spending more time outside, which means it is the perfect time to refresh your outdoor space. Whether you're working with a big backyard or just a small balcony, Wayfair has everything you need to make it feel more like you. Wayfair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup. For comfy conversations, set to sleek dining tables, and outdoor decor, they've got it all, and at their prices that fit your budget. I mean, whether you're entertaining guests, which I absolutely love to do, campfires, things like that, just bonfires, those are my favorite things, or just relaxing solo. Shop Wayfair can help you unwind. And my favorite part is the delivery is absolutely free and hassle-free. So even with that big stuff that you're looking at on the website. So shop from a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. Get outside with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's wayfair.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. Welcome back to Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. Do me a favor, hit subscribe, rate 5 stars, whatever you're doing. If you're listening on audio, I appreciate it. You can find me on Twitter at Locked On K-State. We're discussing the inevitable 16-team college football playoff, which is going to happen in 2026 and beyond. The power given to the SEC and the Big Ten with the new media deals, the college football television deal through ESPN that goes through 2031 is one of the biggest reasons why they're getting these automatic bids of them each getting 4 in this new proposed expansion of 16 teams. Now, there's a lot of things that will have to change if they go to the 16 teams. And I think some of it could be very beneficial for Kansas State. And that's what we're here to talk about on this show, Locked On Kansas State, your team every day. Let's dive into this one. Let's just say that the Big 12 is going to get 2 automatic qualifiers with this new proposal starting in 2026. And for the record, I think the Big 12 will get 2 bids this year as well. I think they're going to have no opportunity but to say no because of that, because I think the Big 12 is going to be an absolute force this season. There are so many good teams in the Big 12 this year. I mean, Drake Toll over on Locked On Big 12 just the other day, if you want to listen to them, check them out for your second listen of the day. They were just talking about how great all the quarterbacks were in this conference alone. Now, I will say they did not give some love to Avery Johnson, which grinded my gears quite a bit, but they're not wrong. There's a lot of really good football players and a lot of really good teams in this conference. We're going to break that down in our upcoming series where we break down every single Big 12 school in the month of May, our little summer school series, if you will. But this automatic bid, this 2 automatic bids in 2026 and beyond, how would you decide that if you're a Big 12 school? Do you just say, hey, if you make it to the Big 12 championship, you're in, whether you win or not? So in this past year, Arizona State, Iowa State, you're in. Congratulations. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to take a step back and actually try and play some play-in games. Now, some things would have to change if that was the case. One, college football would have to change the rules, and that's probably the biggest thing that would have to change. Because as of right now, college football only allows 12 games in the regular season. If you did a play-in type of game to get to the postseason, that would have to be considered regular season. It is not postseason because it's a play-in game. So, for the record here, this is how they are considering it. And Joel Klatt came out with this a few months ago when discussing a possibility of a 14-team playoff, 16-team playoff. I think I even saw one about a potential of a 22-team playoff. But the idea behind it was with these automatic qualifiers that I want to get to. Joe Klatt talked about for the ACC and the Big 12, if both of those conferences were only left with 2 automatic bids, then you would almost forego your conference championship game. You'd no longer have the Big 12 championship game, and you'd have play-in games where after you played your 12 games of the season, you would take the top 4 teams left. And in this case, if you look at last year's schedule in the Big 12 or last year's standings, this actually would have worked quite well. Now, Kansas State would have just missed out on making it for this net last year, but there were 4 teams all tied with a 7-2 conference record. So you would took your top 4 teams and you would have number 1 seed take on number 4 and number 2 take on number 3. And the 2 winners of those games would be your automatic qualifiers for the college football playoffs. Now, that doesn't mean that you would miss out on a potential of making it there. Let's say your number 1 seed is 11-0, 12-0, and you wind up losing that 1 versus 4 seed. Well, you're most likely going to be in that large bid then at 12-1. And if this was the case for last season, Arizona State would have took on Colorado. Iowa State would have took on BYU. The winners of those 2 teams, winners of those 2 games would have went on to the college football playoffs if this would have been in place last season. Technically, in the Big 12 standings, Kansas State finished 5-4. They finished low. They would not been any close. They finished 9th in the Big 12 last year, which is crazy to say because at one point towards the end of the season, and it might have even been into the final week, if I remember, Kansas State needed a win and then a whole bunch of things to happen, but there was still a slight chance. Like they weren't eliminated from making it to the Big 12 championship game heading into the final game of the year, which was wild to think about. And they wind up finishing 9th. That just shows how much parity is in the Big 12 conference, right? Insane stuff that we have going on here. I think it could benefit Kansas State, though, this automatic qualifier, although I don't like it, although I don't think it's fair, although I do think it's rigged. I think it could save Kansas State. And the reason I say that is because although they did finish last, or not last, they did finish last. Say it again. They finished 9th this past season. Last year, that's what I was looking for. They started off great. They started 7-1. If they do that again, they start 7-1, 8-1, maybe even fall off towards the end a little bit, which I don't think is going to happen looking at their schedule. I think this team can be 10-2, and I think that's a fair assessment of the schedule. We're going to dive into it more and more as we go, but my spring projection was them finishing 10-2 and being in the Big 12 championship against BYU. That's what I've said all off season long so far. I'm sticking to it until things change. I think Texas Tech's been on the come up. I think that's fair to say. And I think that's one of the teams that we might have trouble with. And I think Baylor might be tough. Baylor and Texas Tech are the 2 teams that I think we might get a loss to as of right now. And I think we could swing by Texas Tech too. Texas Tech, I think, is the possibility of being really good right now on paper, but might not be that great when the snaps happen. And if that's the case, then we never know what's going to happen with Oklahoma State and Utah on the road towards the end of that season. Both those teams underperformed last year. They are bound to come back up. Baylor is the one that scares me as one I think is a trap game on the road after playing UCF. Got TCU at home the next week, end of September. To me, that is one of those games that I'm nervous about. I think that, to me, is right now could be our first loss of the season. But even if they are 10-2, they're in the Big 12 championship, and they have, in my opinion, they're playing BYU, a team that we don't get to play in the regular season. But even if we were in that same boat, and let's say we were 9-3 or even 10-2, and we're talking this new playoff format in 2026, you are a top 4 seed, and you are battling for a chance to make the college football playoffs. What this really does is it takes away the Big 12 title. Absolutely, it does that, which I don't like, and I don't think Dr. Pepper will like it either. But what it does is it gives 4 teams instead of 2 the chance to extend their season to more important games. Because let's be honest, if you go 6-6 or 7-5, and you wind up making a bowl game that is not so great feeling, and we can even say it for last year, we weren't 6-6 or 7-5, but we weren't very excited to go play the Rape Bowl against Rutgers, were we? After starting 7-1, now you have 4 teams in the Big 12 at the end of the year battling for a spot, a guaranteed spot in the college football playoffs. Would I like it to be 4 guaranteed qualifiers or 3? Absolutely. And I think that's actually where they should go. I think they should go with 3 automatic qualifiers. If you're going to give the SEC and Big 10 4 because of the media deal, there shouldn't be a gap where it goes 4-2. It should be 4-3 if we're going to consider the ACC and the Big 12 Power 4 schools. Power 4 schools. I want to talk about Nick Saban next, because with this new college football commission that's supposedly being proposed, he's supposed to head it. But there is a big name with Big 12 ties that might be changing the way he feels with that. Plus, ESPN came out with a report saying that there's a good chance that Kansas State could find themselves in the college football playoffs, exactly what you and I are thinking. We'll discuss that at the end of the show right here on Locked On Kansas State. Nick Saban, college football legend, Hall of Fame coach, arguably the greatest coach of all time in any kind of football capacity, if you will. I'm not going to go ahead and lie about that, whether it's an SEC type of coach or not. I think we can all agree that Nick Saban is great, and I think he's even good on College Game Day. He was formerly tabbed to be one of the rising star, if you will, something that he obviously needs in his resume, to be the head of the new commission of college sports that is starting by President Donald Trump. He wants to start something up there, a commission on college sports. But it sounds like Nick Saban is a little hesitant on either taking the job or just not thinking they need it. Saban came out, and this was reported by On3. It says that he came on the SEC network, the Paul Feinbein show, the other day on Wednesday, and said, quote, "First of all, I don't know a lot about this commission. And secondly, I'm not sure we really need the commission. I think that there is a lot of people that know exactly what the issues are in college football and exactly what we need to do to fix them. The key to the drill is getting people together so we can move it forward." What is the main problems with college football? Well, I would think right away is having Cal in the ACC. That's a big problem for me. Is my problems the same problems as how everybody else is thinking with college football? The fact that we have Oregon, UCLA playing in the Big 10, and the Cal part on the Pacific Coast playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference is absolutely insane. This all started, by the way, when Texas and Oklahoma left for the SEC. So Nick Saban, as a former SEC legend and someone who most likely is probably out to bat for the SEC, if you think you know the problems, well, your conference is the one that started them. Realignment is the biggest issue to college athletics right now. What realignment has done has changed the game for exactly how we think about it. And then you can talk about players getting paid, transfer portal. I think those are way down the line of priority of what the problem is. And then you talk about this new settlement thing happening. I think NCAA, just as a governing force, I think is even above NIL and transfer portal. But the main issue is the media companies wanting to get as many time zones as possible and ruining the sport down the way, not caring about the 3 pillars of fans and rivalry and tradition, not caring that Oklahoma State and Oklahoma won't play anymore, not giving a crap that Washington and Washington State won't play the Apple Cup anymore because they're not Pac-12 people. They won't care. They don't care. What they care about is the fact that now they can have Big Ten after dark instead of Pac-12 after dark because they now have a prime time game on the West Coast, thanks to Oregon, thanks to Washington, thanks to UCLA and all their fans that show up to those games. That's the biggest problem. So if Saban thinks that's the problem, which he didn't address what the problem was, he just said he thinks everybody, it was a generalized statement. I think that a lot of people know exactly what the issues of college football are and exactly what we need to do to fix them. What is that? This is what pops in my head right away. There's another person, that is going to be on the commission as well. The co-chair of the commission will be Texas Tech chairman Cody Campbell. Now, Texas billionaire, sold his oil company for Double Eagle for $4.1 billion. Guy knows how to use his money really well. And he's doing a really good job with Texas Tech's NIL. We can't stop talking about Texas Tech the way they're spending money right now. And they're at the top of the transfer portal boards and potentially being a college football playoff favorite, making it for the first time. We'll talk about that in a second because of how he's treating the players coming into his organization. Well, he's going to be a co-chairman on the commission, apparently. And according to Mitt Winters on Twitter, this is also a really good follow, Winter Sport Law. He recently expressed his views on fixing the college sports, and some of the things that he talked about was having an antitrust exemption, pre-exempt state NIL laws, no employment of players, which in his mind is very important, allowing schools to pool media rights, schools, not conferences, and reorganization of conferences. The conference realignment thing is the most interesting part to me. And the reason behind that is because, as I mentioned, this all started with the Big 12 and the SEC, with Oklahoma and Texas leaving for the Southeastern Conference. Well, if it was up to Cody Campbell, he said Oklahoma and Texas will be right back in the Big 12. And I'm not against that. Those are two big brand names that the Big 12 lost. So bring those back. Bring more competition to this conference and start talking more to the Big 12 about how you talk about the SEC and the Big 10. Bring them back to this. I think Brett Yormark's done a great job having the flex since those teams left. But if you can force those teams to come back and make more sense with these conferences regionally, and I'm even more of an advocate, and I know you guys might not think the same way, but Nebraska, Mizzou, those are Big 12 schools in my mind. It just makes sense to be Big 12 schools. Not Arizona, not Arizona State. Those schools. So we'll see what happens down the road here. Let's finish up here. And there was an interesting thing that came out. ESPN came out with their 100 days until week 0 officially right now on Thursday night. It's 100 days until we see Iowa State and Kansas State kick off in Ireland, 11 o'clock a.m. Central kickoff time for that. So no matter what, even though they're playing across the pond, still an 11 a.m. kickoff. But ESPN came out with their top storylines, games, predictions, all that stuff for the 2025 season. Obviously a way too early one. But what I caught on it was with Kansas State was they are considered one of the 10 programs to be potential first-time college football playoff teams. Now, they're one of 4 from the Big 12. But what they said about Kansas State was if the Wildcats beat Iowa State in their season opener in Dublin, Ireland, they'll take the early lead as the Big 12's best playoff hope. Well, no duh, it's week 0. That's pretty obvious, right? The return of quarterback Avery Johnson is significant as the dual threat player racked up 3,300 yards and 32 touchdowns. Expectations are even higher for his second season as a starter. So ESPN gives us 2 sentences of things we already knew. That just kind of proves to me that they really don't know much about Kansas State, which is unfortunate, but they were not wrong there. Obviously, 2 sentences are true. They're just very bland and generalized. If they beat Iowa State week 0, the only game where, Big 12 is going against each other, yes, they will be the Big 12 favorite. That's obvious. Thank you so much, ESPN, for that one. You could be a detective. I really appreciate that. And then number 2, of course, expectations are higher for Avery Johnson in his second season because this is his second season. 1, he's got great weapons around him. Yes, DJ Giddens is gone, but Dylan Edwards is going to step up and look strong. I like the running backs behind him as well, including our most recent transfers. Joe Jackson, of course, as well. And then the wide receiver group is just unreal. He didn't have these weapons last year. The tight end room is just as good, if not better. We'll see what Lincoln Cure can do. So the fact that they are on this list is not surprising to me. The fact that they can only give these two generalized statements is not surprising to me either, because for some reason they have a hard time talking about Kansas State. Even when they had their 2022 Big 12 title run, ESPN struggled as well. I just never get it. It's a good program. Kansas State is always in the winning ways for the last, who knows, decade or so at the very least. And they still struggle with this. It gets me every time. Every time. All right, we got more coming up for you on Friday's episode. We're going to finally start digging into that summer school series as well. We got some women's basketball changing. We got some Cats are getting better. Another transfer edition. We'll talk about that down the line. And then scheduled visits for the men's basketball team. Is Tang actually going to add something? And is it something that is much needed? I think so. We'll talk about that down the line here later on in another episode very, very soon. But until then, please like the video. Please subscribe. And this has been Locked On Kansas State.